Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Carla Morales. I am the Vice President of the Arizona Technology Council Southern Arizona office. It is my pleasure to welcome you all to the May Tucson Tech Talk series, the Global 5G Rollout Race in the Emerging Arizona 5 Technologies. As you may have seen when you chimed into the event today, we're asking everybody to please mute their microphones when not speaking and to turn off their cameras to ensure that the attention is focused on our panelists for today. Currently, we have sponsorships available for future speaker series events and all future Arizona technology events. For more information about that, please make sure you connect with us at events@arizonatechnologycouncil.org. At this moment, we'd also like to ask you to please include your questions. You can put those in the chat area and the moderator will compile the questions and pull from there. You can also use the raise your hand option and we will call on you to unmute for questions at the very end of the program. At this moment, I'd like to introduce Lisa Lavallo, Vice President for Cox Communications, to do the welcoming remarks. Lisa, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Carla, and welcome everyone. As you know, today's program is all about 5G, which is a 5th generation technology standard that continues to evolve. It's an exciting time in Arizona for sure with this technology. At Cox, we're very proud to support our partners with the development of 5G technology. And given our role in partnership in the 5G efforts, I'm looking forward to hearing from other industry collaborators as they discuss where 5G sits today and forecast its evolution and emerging technologies here in Arizona. So without further ado, we're going to kick this off starting with an exciting video, I think.
In the 5G world, data moves in gigabits. Machines are connected and cities are smart. People and things will interact in new and amazing ways. And Freefall's new Freestar 5G antenna system will help make this future a reality. Low power, low profile, and low cost. The Freestar will outperform today's antennas by providing extremely rapid 360-degree scanning for device discovery and tracking. Our proprietary dielectric rod technology is unlike anything else on the market. Combined with Freefall's advanced find and follow tracking software, it allows one Freestar to replace 3 or 4 traditional flat panel arrays, seamlessly tracking multiple mobile users with consistent signal strength and data rate. By connecting users using a single or multiple antenna elements, the Freestar enables intelligent use of reflections and enhanced MIMO technology to optimize coverage. Its flexible and modular design can be customized for virtually any application, from outdoor small cells to connected vehicles to wireless backhaul to indoor units for the smart home or office. From smart cities to smart machines to revolutionary connections for people everywhere, it's data that will move the 5G world. And with the new Freestar 5G antenna system, Freefall moves the data.
Great, thank you. Okay, well now it's my privilege to introduce our esteemed panel and our moderator. So let me start with Alex Rodriguez, CEO of Freefall 5G. Thank you for providing us with that video. Let's see, Alex is, as I said, the CEO of Freefall, and he is a former employee of Raytheon, has very close connections with the Tech Council. We all know him well from that role. And a little bit about Freefall. Their small cell technology is round and low profile and enables 360-degree connections. It replaces flat panel deployment, as you saw in the video. So we're looking forward to hearing from Alex today to talk about that product and other developments he sees going on around the state. Next, we have Dustin McIntyre. He is the CTO of COM Sovereign. Dustin has an impressive background in engineering, and his leadership on the board of his company is very impressive. And he's ready to talk about the 10 to 15-year rollout and what's happening with 5G long term. So Dustin, welcome and glad to have you here. Jim Moreland is the Deputy Vice President of Innovation at Raytheon. Raytheon is excited about 5G. Certainly they have a lot of radar interference mitigation technology that involves 5G. And so we'll be hearing from Jim about what Raytheon is looking at and how they're thinking about the uses of 5G in the future. And then we have also from Verizon, Matt Clark. He's the manager of government relations for Verizon in Arizona and will serve as the government relations manager for Verizon in Arizona and New Mexico to help navigate the challenges and opportunities that Verizon faces as it grows its worldwide telecommunications network. Prior to joining Verizon, Matt served as the government relations director of the Arizona Department of Transportation, where he helped identify, develop, and promote legislation that supports ADOP's visions and goals. So welcome to our panelists, and let me now introduce our moderator, Jeff Sabatka, which is no stranger to any of us. He's the vice president for the Arizona Commerce Authority and the first state broadband director for the state of Arizona. He is responsible for strategically managing relationships with state government agencies, city and county governments, tribal governments, telecommunications carriers, federal communications policymakers, and nonprofits to advance the expansion of broadband statewide. He has 25 years of experience in the telco industry, having worked for T-Mobile and AT&T. So welcome to the panelists, and to Jeff, I'll pass it off to you. Jeff, I think you're on mute. Jeff, you're on mute.
Sorry about that, guys. That was a rookie mistake. I got to tell you, I got to get used to these things. According to CTIA, which is the industry organization that represents the wireless companies in America, there are 132,500 wireless jobs here in Arizona. They make $11.3 billion, that's with a B, economic impact, with $5.7 billion in pay and benefits directly from the wireless industry in Arizona. 65% of the Arizona adults are wireless only. They are truly cord cutters, and 7 million wireless subscriber connections here in the state of Arizona. My two bosses, Governor Doug Ducey and Sandra Watson, the CEO of the Arizona Commerce Authority, have identified 5G as one of the key technologies driving the future of Arizona. I'm excited to moderate this discussion because our four panelists represent companies behind the 5G rollout globally and emerging locally from Arizona's innovation ecosystem. And we support all of those here at the Arizona Commerce Authority. So let's start first with some background on 5G in each one of your enterprises. Matt, let's start with you in Verizon. Where's your company's focus with 5G, and what use cases do you see in the near future?
Well, thanks, Jeff, and thanks again for having us. At Verizon, you know, we are an international company, and we are leading the charge to roll out our 5G ultra wideband millimeter network throughout the state of Arizona. But right now, we have recently named Tucson as one of our second 5G city in the state, along with the Phoenix metropolitan region. We continue to try and roll that out and bring the economic development, safety opportunities, and just overall best-in-class wireless service throughout the state. So if you're looking at some of the impacts that we kind of see with this, I think we have to look at it from the imagination is really what you're looking at, is there's really no boundaries with 5G. We look at what happened with 4G, and that really enabled us to bring all of that stuff that we used to have a computer or a laptop for down to something we can keep in our pocket. It allows us to watch videos, to send almost instantaneous messages to one another, and you know, communicate real time, not only face to face, but you know, through the phone. Things that we used to see on Star Trek when I was a kid growing up that we never thought we'd see now, we now have in our pocket. So, you know, I'm not going to say that we can beam each other in other places with 5G, but certainly the boundaries are limitless. You know, some of the things that we continue to look at from a safety aspect are like real-time accident protection. So one of the things that we talk about is if there's a car crash or there's something that's going on and we need to make sure that the ambulance driver can communicate with the hospital where they're going, you can have real-time communication that's delivered not only by voice, but video as well. So you can see the severity of what's going on, and they can prep the emergency room and have the right doctors ready to deliver care from the moment the ambulance comes. So that's just kind of the real world applications, but also from kind of the personal aspect, we're talking downloading movies in milliseconds instead of minutes, and no more of this little toilet bowl that I like to call that happens in the corner of your phone where it's just constantly searching and going around. And the gaming aspects and all of this other stuff. So really the sky is the limit on this stuff. And I hate to keep mixing the metaphors, but there are applications that can be used across all things from public safety, home use, personal applications, education, all this other stuff. And really, there is no limit to the imagination that the speeds and the accuracy of 5G will deliver.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Alex, you're coming from a different perspective with a smaller company. Where is your company's focus with 5G, and what are your use cases that you see in the near future?
Jeff, thank you for that question. First, let me start with a crazy comment. No, 5G did not start COVID. And no, 5G is not a conspiracy out there. Yes, 5G will transfer the global economy. And yes, 5G, to your earlier point, Jeff, is already rocking in the state of Arizona. And so before I turn to Freefall's example, I just want to thank Carla Morales and Jamie Nielsen and the Arizona Technology Council for helping all of us catalyze, convene, and connect fifth generation opportunity going forward in the state of Arizona. So Freefall 5G is an early stage disruptive company. We're focused on helping make the fastest speeds of 5G universally available through our signature product we call the Freestar 5G antenna system. The system operates closer to a base station. It's more than just a simple antenna, given its unique capabilities, as you saw in the video clip. It provides millimeter wave propagation. So this is the third stool of the three-legged stool, if you will, for 5G. 5G being low band, mid band, and then high band. We're focused on the high band. The product radiates 360 degrees, as Lisa mentioned in the example there. And we think we achieved state of the art recently in terms of the extended range for 5G millimeter wave. So the system is also agnostic, meaning that it can connect literally to any wireless carrier such as Verizon or their peer competitors. It can also work with any of the major manufacturers, radio manufacturers. So after substantial time and treasure, risk capital, I'm excited to share with all of you that we anticipate achieving a unique certification shortly by the Federal Communications Commission. You're hearing it here first. We're gonna have a major announcement following that milestone in a few weeks, but I thought I'd share that that's on the way. In short, we have this patent protected IP that is locally born here in Tucson as a collaboration between two other innovative early stage companies born in Tucson as well, Freefall Aerospace and Electronic Design and Development Corporation. Freefall Aerospace is a dynamic antenna solution provider for commercial space, aerospace, terrestrial markets, and the such. Electronic Design and Development Corporation is a leading solution provider of 5G millimeter wave repeaters. And listen to this, they already have FCC certification for their repeaters. So that's a very exciting breakthrough for a company based here in Tucson. And they just signed a major collaboration agreement with a company some of you will recognize, Wilson Electronics, the national leader for signal booster products based in Utah. In short, Jeff, look, there's so much to be excited about with respect to this technology. We think we have to fix a gap that exists in the market as the rollout, sort of stumbled and it got started a few years back. We're still in the rollout, but it's coming, I would say now, fast and furious. But you've got to fix the problem associated with millimeter wave, making that ubiquitous, because it's an enabler to all the other fourth industrial revolution technologies where data throughput is critical in nanoseconds. So I'll pause there, but just want to express my gratitude for this opportunity today.
Jeff, I think you're muted again.
So Jim, coming from Raytheon, one of the world's great military contractors and defense contractors around the world, and particularly here in the United States, what do you see as the use cases specific for 5G for a large company such as Raytheon in the near future? Obviously, I'm sure we've got some big ones to talk about in the distant future, but how do you see this being deployed today?
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. Hello, everyone. So first of all, let's kind of give you an update on Raytheon Technologies, right? It's an aerospace and defense company, but as of last April 2020, there was a big merger that occurred between United Technologies and Raytheon, as you probably know it, in Arizona, where Raytheon Missile Systems resided. So now we have a merger between Pratt & Whitney, Collins Aerospace, Raytheon Intelligence and Space, and Raytheon Missile and Defense. And that's now a much bigger company made up of 40% commercial, 60% defense. So we've got a really nice balance now between the defense world and the commercial world that we touch. Like I mentioned, Raytheon Missile Systems resides in Tucson, Arizona. So it has a very large footprint there and really is responsible and takes the leadership in building our effectors, our standard missile, our missile systems, and a big part of our portfolio. Some of the internal use cases, and this is really critical to us, this whole 5G implementation, as we look at resiliency and communication networks, where we have to have an operational availability of 100%, right? Especially when we have adversaries coming after us. The speed of information, how do we move it across networks at speeds that don't really experience degradation, and then also spectrum bandwidth, right, and the throughput capacity. So some of the internal things that we're doing, we're building a digital enterprise across Raytheon Technology so that we can work with digital artifacts and share it with all disciplines within the organization as we go from design to manufacturing to operational sustainment as you field those systems. Building, and in that case, you're going to have massive amounts of data, right? Authoritative data that you're sharing across a very distributed company. So 5G is going to play a critical role there. Industry 4.0. So how do you connect the design, 3D design tools up to the manufacturing floor to have direct feeds of information to tell the robotic arms where you want the weld, where do you want cuts, where's the precision drilled holes going to be? And you want that feedback to go back and forth as you're doing the design. Can you manufacture that, or you're going to get feedback from the manufacturing floor saying you can't design something that way, so you've got to modify your design. And we need that interaction to be real time so that we can make sure we don't have a lot of rework and we can really make the high efficiency production. So those are really critical internal things that we're working on right now. And 5G is going to be a critical enabler. External, now you're talking about the warfighter and what we have to do for them. So in the future, we're looking at now having more direct linkage between weapons, right? Weapons talking to weapons in flight. And to do that, again, you have to have a lot of bandwidth. You have to have speeds of information flow, sensors directly to weapons versus going back to major platforms. So that's going to have a critical effect. And all the way up at the Office of Secretary of Defense, right? They're playing a really big role in this. They're putting out these tranches now. And if you read a lot of the newscasts that have come out that talks about world's largest dual-use 5G testing effort at multiple military installations, and they're putting out $600 million to do this. So Raytheon's involved. A lot of times you're putting teams together. This is how they want it arranged. We got multiple universities, multiple big industry partners playing with us, and multiple small businesses. And that's how we're building that. So some examples are Camp Pendleton, where we're doing that. Norfolk Shipyard, we're doing ship to ship, ship to shore. So these are critical things that the Department of Defense are taking serious and really putting in place. And then kind of similar to the Internet of Things that we're all going to experience, we're looking at as we field systems, we want to have those embedded sensors in there so we can do predictive maintenance, predictive analysis on what's going to fail next, right? You have a mean time between failure, but we can't always count on that as you enter systems in different operational contexts. So sometimes things fail a lot sooner than you expected, depending on what the op tempo is and how we use it. So we want to make sure we can predict that and make sure we can really scale down the downtime in systems for our warfighters and keep those systems up and running.
Awesome. Well, weapons talking to weapons. That's a new one. I'm going to write that down, Jim, because that's pretty cool stuff. Dustin, tell us a little bit about how you see 5G relative to emergent companies such as yourself, your place in the 5G ecosystem and where you see it going from here?
Yeah, it's a good question because it certainly warrants a discussion about how we see things. So I'll start with just a description of myself. My job title is CTO of ComSovereign. So basically, my job is putting together the different components under our umbrella for basically a secure and trusted 5G ecosystem. So from the descriptions here, obviously Matt went into an understanding of kind of where Verizon sees the applications and use cases. Raytheon obviously has a whole nother set of compelling use cases. And even Alex kind of came at it from a separate direction. I think what you can take away from this is that the scope of this is broad and very extensive, right? So if we think about what 5G is, often we are trapped in sort of thinking of it as a faster version of 4G or something that I can kind of capture in the old sense of how I view networks. But really, 5G is kind of what I say is flipping the network inside out. So you're basically taking the old infrastructure and pushing it out. So you probably have heard notions like edge compute and some of the other facets that go along with 5G. So 5G is a pipe basically, but in sort of augmentation to that, you add in a lot of other facets. And so the applications around IoT, assisted driving, all those sort of low latency use cases, meaning short delay, are all kind of enabled by having other pieces built into that. So edge compute is a way to take a shortcut through the network, so you're not doing things in and out from a end-to-end solution as you would be today. And so from my standpoint, where 5G is really compelling is it absolutely broke the network and rebuilt it from scratch, kind of taking best paradigms out of the cloud world, looking at commoditized things, how we build standardized interfaces, how we as an ecosystem of companies, and I'm coming into that obviously as a player in sort of a new smaller initiative. We are, a compendium of small companies putting together collaborative end-to-end solutions. Well, really the enablement around the standardization under 5G is it allows us to interoperate. For example, Alex and I have different stuff, but because we're building it based on open standards, it'll work together. And so I think that for me is really one of the key exciting elements around this. And especially as we discussed within Arizona, there are a lot of opportunities and technology investments going on right now. And what facilitates us building those into compelling end-to-end solutions is that interoperability, the sort of integrational aspect that has been cultivated as part of this 5G initiative. And that's where I really find a lot of interesting value.
That's interesting. I like the idea of open standards and collaboration. I think that if you look at many great technologies, having that degree of collaboration has really pushed things forward. So good stuff, Dustin. Let me go ahead and ask Alex a question here. Coming at this from a state perspective, what do we need to do here at the state of Arizona and at the local level in the Tucson and surrounding communities to support Arizona-based 5G companies like Freefall, just to make sure that Arizona is one of the states where jobs are created by the emergence of 5G?
Well, number one, we have you in the right seat, Jeff. And in case you guys don't know, Jeff is the point person for 5G statewide. And, the fact that he has a governor's ear and works directly under Sandra Watson says a lot about the level of priority for this technology statewide. So that's number one, and a sincere one, the role of the ACA and the state government. Two, we're starting out with a strong base. You mentioned 132,000 wireless related jobs. That's very significant, 11 billion in economic impact. What I found interesting was 65% of adults are wireless only. So what is that? We're a population of 7 million in Arizona. You do the math there. The bottom line is there's a lot of subscription opportunity that will go the way of 5G speeds and bandwidth. I think organizations like this one, the Arizona Technology Council, are well poised to help industry catalyze better and connect better. This is one example. Without the Tech Council stepping in, we probably wouldn't have had this event today. There's been a lot of cross discussions happening already amongst organizations. So we're starting to do it, and that's helpful. I also think that the state appropriation process, Jeff, I think you're better poised to describe this, but it's important to know that the state is appropriating monies to help close the so-called digital divide. At a time of, this COVID mess, our children suffered big time academically, some worse than others. And certainly in the rural environment, there was big problems there. So I think, Jeff, I'd like to turn the question back on you, and you can describe to us, fill in the gaps that I may not have covered.
No, that's great, Alex. I think one of the things that we're really focused on the state level is in enabling through an infrastructure investments, companies like Matt with Verizon and yours to get the infrastructure in place so local communities outside of the metro areas, Phoenix and Tucson, will have the ability to get 5G. I know that the wireless carriers are very anxious to expand, but they have to have the infrastructure in place to make that happen. So that's really where we're focused at a state level, is an enablement. So hopefully we continue to do that. Matt, I've got a question for you. Can you tell me a little bit about how Verizon's upgraded its network in Arizona to handle the surge of traffic? I know that 5G has been rolled out here in the Phoenix area and parts of Tucson and other areas. And how do you anticipate future network upgrades to handle this large amount of traffic, not just from folks on phones, but from IoT and robotics and manufacturing and all these other functions that are going to jump onto this 5G network?
Sure, I can touch on it a little bit. And I just have to say is, again, I'm sure most people are noticing now, one of the benefits of doing the first question is you can't really screw up because the smart people behind you will fill in the gaps. And so as I've been watching and listening to many of the answers, I see you got the government relations hack in a t-shirt, and then you got the VP and, CEOs and others. So I have to say thank you guys for helping bring the intelligence level up on this call. On the other hand, for what we've been doing is, when the pandemic hit, usually, in business, you can kind of map out where it's going. You can look at growth, where it's happening, where you expect to go. And that's how we were building our 5G networks. We were looking to deploy our millimeter wave antennas and different things like that. It's, you have the normal system, everything goes into an algorithm, you decide it, and you move and you work with your partners and whatnot, and you decide where you're going to build. Well, the pandemic threw that all out the window, and you now had a network that was strained to capacity. I think we were looking at a 50 or 60% increase on a daily basis over Mother's Day. And Mother's Day is our busiest time on a wireless network. And we were looking at things that were really stretching us to our absolute limit. And so it was all hands on deck to, one, ensure that the integrity of our network stayed true and that we can make sure that we fulfilled all of our commitments to our customers and our businesses, all of our stakeholders. After that, what we've had to do is kind of envision, do we keep going? What are we doing? What are we guessing at? And so what really we've been looking at is to continue the deployment based on the methods that we've been using, and we'll continue to do that, but also strengthening and starting to look at where we need to fill in the gaps and where is the growth coming from. And what is the challenge, and I think many of us will face that, not just Verizon, is with Arizona, it's a large growth state. And so how do we continue to get the resources we need to ensure that we're not only building out where we are, but we can expand to the areas of need? And there are multiple cities and communities throughout the state that will need this. So from Verizon's perspective, what we do is we continue to focus on where the holes are, and we daily identify them and look to build them out. And so our goal is to not only exceed where we are, but start to make sure that our network can provide kind of a backfill or a backup. And that's what we think 5G will do, is that by moving many of these up the spectrum, it frees other space up. So it's like a freeway. You add another lane, or you add another, or, if you have one freeway that's always, really crowded, and I'll use my ADOT days. So you have a freeway that's really crowded, and then you build a highway over here. So you have a 6-lane freeway and you build a 4-lane highway over here. And this is 5G. Well, just taking those folks over here and moving them to here frees up a bunch of space over here. So that's kind of how we build the network, is, again, supporting what we have and making sure that it does. But our growth will also backfill and provide other opportunities to allow the data to flow, and so we can meet our growing demand for our award-winning service.
Great, thanks, Matt. Jim, over the years, we've seen certain strategies, if you will, pioneered by companies, such things like Six Sigma, lean manufacturing, that have really, transformed entire industries, although started by one company. Can you tell us a little about the digital transformation strategy at Raytheon and how your company plans to use 5G to make that happen?
Yeah, so I touched on that a little bit in the intro, and you know, our goal is this, is to build a digital enterprise that all disciplines can see a from concept, what that concept is. When the design starts, they ought to have transparency into the authoritative data that represents that system, and understand real time what's going on, so that you have that immediate feedback on a design and where maybe the design's breaking down. Because at one point in time in the past, when you didn't have this digital enterprise, the engineers were looking at it, and then they sequentially passed it to the next person that looks at it, and then it went to the manufacturing floor, and you didn't really have that real-time feedback. Now, as you get that real-time feedback, you can eliminate a lot of that rework. You can reduce the cycle times because you can do things much faster, and you're getting that live feedback. And link that to Industry 4.0, where we're starting to tie the 3D design tools that the engineers are using to the tools on the manufacturing floor that are running the robotics with artificial intelligence algorithms driving those manufacturing machines and the robotics on the floor, to really get to more precision on what you're trying to do in the design, right? Rather than guess at where you think the hole should be drilled and it's off by a little bit. Now you're getting down to some precision because you have a direct linkage from machine to machine, from a real design and a 3D tool to the manufacturing machine. So why is 5G a critical enabler for that? Because of the massive amounts of data that are going to flow back and forth to make that real-time communication and feedback happen, that iterative loop there. You're talking about some real high levels of data when you talk about design drawings that are megabytes in size, and even bigger, that when you start flowing that across the network, it's critical, and you really can't really have a degradation or disconnection or intermittent network to do that, because then you may corrupt the files and have a lot of bad things happen there. So again, this is a key enabler for what we want to do as we work from digital artifacts, and it's even going further. And then a lot of our customers in the Pentagon are saying, hey, can you put that out on the cloud, right? Can we work in the cloud environment, put that digital artifact there so that we can do real-time reviews, technical reviews of that design with the customer, and he has transparency in there on a regular basis to see what's going on with the design. So now you're talking about a future state where you may be able to eliminate the face-to-face technical reviews that, I'll tell you, when they happen in the Pentagon, you're talking about 2 months prep time to get ready for those. You're talking about a lot of admirals, generals, senior executives, high-level officials in industry taking the time to do this. So a lot of money in the government goes towards those type of reviews. And now we're starting to look at, can we completely eliminate those? Because everybody will have transparency into the design as it flows through all the way to the time that you manufacture, develop the system, and you're ready to field it.
Jim, that's exciting stuff. I mean, just by eliminating the reviews, I got to imagine that's going to drive a lot of cost out of the process.
That's our expectations, because again, if we can really design, build better products, eliminate a lot of the defects that occur, from all those handoffs that would happen sequentially, then you're really going to reduce the costs in doing a lot of this. And then back to Matt's comment, I mean, the ability to be able to move around how you use that network is absolutely critical too, right? Because there's certain times, certain disciplines need parts of that network. There's other times, maybe other parts of the company don't need it. So the ability to move that around and manage that spectrum, or manage how that network is used, is absolutely crucial to doing your job the most efficient way.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Lisa, I'd like to draw this back to you and Cox for just a second. One of the big areas of Governor Ducey's focus regarding digital transformation is bridging this digital divide. I know Cox is very active in this area, as well as connecting with these 5G enabled companies. Do you see 5G as a way to connect the unconnected that maybe reside outside the normal network, for example, that Cox puts down in a metro area?
Yeah, I mean, I think all of us that are in telecommunications understand the need to reach out to rural markets or truly unserved communities, of which we do have several across the state of Arizona, and they're difficult to get to with traditional fiber or lashing cable on telephone poles. So the opportunity for us to get to these rural communities with a great product, we definitely want to work to enable that. And we have a great backbone of fiber in the state, Cox does, and other telecommunications providers to help our 5G partners make this happen quicker and more cost effectively. And certainly with the governor's desire to put some money into the budget to expand the infrastructure needed for Verizon and others to do their thing, we are definitely at the table to make that happen. But it's got to be a collaboration because it's very expensive and we want to do it rapidly. Because as things evolve and 5G becomes 6G and 6G becomes 7G, I mean, we want to be sure that our state is on the cutting edge of that so that we have agility to get there.
Good stuff. Dustin, I'm going to ask you a kind of an unusual question. I think that sometimes technologies tend to pop up that I like to say, you never see them coming. I'm going to give you an example. TikTok. Never would have thought that TikTok became TikTok. It's just one of those little outgrowths of the time that we're at in the world. What's your prediction for you'll never see this coming prediction for a future use of 5G? And we are recording, so this is a good one. We'll be on record.
Well, most use cases I probably should talk about, so we'll stick with the ones that are probably a little bit more socially acceptable.
Okay.
Actually, what I'd like to throw it back to is sort of we never saw any of these coming, which is when we started looking at cloud computing, we saw it as a way to make computing cheap. The whole desire was to take the enterprise and make it cheaper to run and operate. And what ended up happening is we bought these massive sets of computers and put them in centralized locations, and then we started renting them basically. But what that opened the door to was really a whole new ecosystem of developers, right? So no longer did I need to go buy myself $1 million worth of computers, host them somewhere, and then go work on how I'm going to actually deploy and manage my own network. What really happened is we created that idea of sort of the garage startup. A bunch of people who basically wrote their own software and magically overnight deployed it and the world got to see it. TikTok is a pseudo example of that. There are many others like that, which are essentially folks who came together with an idea, baked something together, and magically the world saw it, liked it, and deployed it. Or accepted it. So I think where I see the 5G realm is a mirror of that, in the sense that it is opening the door to a lot of opportunities that we go in with certain preconceived notions. It's going to be smart fill in the blank. It's going to be, artificial intelligence. It's going to be all these other things that I think are sort of logical pieces that we think are the notional way to go. But in the actuality, come 2-3 years from now, there's going to be smart young people who say, I've got an idea. I'm going to go do this. And because I have this new capability that I can go create value on top of, they're going to have the ability to move in and fill that space. And so I kind of punted on the question, but I'm turning it around from the standpoint of we all come into this with the idea of projecting out into the future where we're going. And in actuality, we end up not seeing these pivot points that are right in front of us. And in order to kind of capture that and focus on those opportunities, we really need to see what the enablers are and not necessarily where they head. And so the way I see it is really that we are building in an infrastructure and a new paradigm of being able to add local compute, data storage, temporal and local data aspects to what we do that really break what an application is, because now it's got other notions of sense to it.
Sounds good. I'm gonna go out on a limb here, Dustin, and say I'm gonna go for holograph meetings. So instead of Zoom, we're all gonna be sitting in the same room, looking a little grainy but good. Alex, I got a question for you.
Yeah, can I?
Yes,
can I
please.
follow up on Dustin's point? A lot of what I think you'll see is the edge of the, like you said, edge computing. So I know some of the things that we're talking about is ways, will be things that you didn't anticipate doing that you can do now. So for example, when it comes to MEC computing and different things like that, it's about bringing Wi-Fi. So my kids can get on the bus and connect and can have faster speeds than I currently do now, and can do their homework or download a video or do all that other stuff in ways that they never could before. And they can do it on their school laptop or whatnot. And it's on a safe network that has rapid speeds and different things like that. So you can see that kind of come and replace other things. It's very much similar, I would say, kind of an evolution of Netflix from Blockbuster. Nobody ever saw that coming but it just came and it changed the world overnight. And so I think as you see this 5G kind of deploy, and as smart people say, hey, if I just put this here instead of here, all of a sudden everybody looks at it and it's like, oh, okay, aha, that was exactly what it should have happened, but nobody's thinking about it now. So I don't know. Again, I want to mimic what Justin said. I don't think that we can go out on a limb. I think holograms are a perfect example where we can look at it and say, yeah, that's just the next step in meeting prep or meeting together. But you know, it'll be, I think, an evolution that just happens kind of overnight, that everybody, it will make sense when it happens, but nobody's really expecting it to happen right now.
I'm just going to cheat with one little piece, which is,
Sorry, I mean, I just wanted to explain.
I'm going to cheat a little bit and say mobility is going to be the key, right? It's about now with the ability to move applications to the edge. It's about me being able to move and take the network with me, right? No longer am I waiting for my infrastructure to show up and then do something. It's coming with me. So I think that part of just the paradigm flip that we got to rationalize, and then all of this other stuff sort of builds into that.
Good stuff. Jim, I'm afraid to ask you as far as you will never see this coming, because I'm sure you see lots of different things. And if you tell me Skynet, I'm going to get worried. But what do you see in the defense realm beyond equipment talking to each other? Do you see better coordination from, you know, obviously when we go to war, we work in coalitions, we work with other nations, we work with different military contractors. Do you see all that being tied together and utilizing 5G, or do you see this as something that's going to be more of an American only strategy?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, because that gets into our classification levels, and that's been our biggest challenge is what can we share with different nations, although they're considered our allies and partners, and we're fighting a coalition battle with them. We still have, you know, operational cells that split them up because of classification levels, secret, top secret, special access that we can't share. I'm hoping that this is going to help that, but I mean, you're still going to have those security milestones to get over. So it'll be interesting. But I absolutely think 5G is going to help us get to more of a joint force within the United States, right? As we look at our separate military services, we've been talking joint for years. We're starting to really look at the command and control structure now and change it to really embed joint in and not just say, oh, everybody was there, so it's joint, because that's not good enough. So I see this really starting to maybe to eliminate some of the levels of structure to where we can reduce our command and control, let's say bureaucracy or levels, and therefore do things much quicker, because now we can get every part of the unit to get the same information at the same time, right? Because 5G is going to allow that throughput. And now you can delegate authorities, delegate decision-making down, because everybody's looking at the same piece of data real time to make their decision off of. So I think this is going to be absolutely crucial for us. And I'll just hope that, back to your point, Jeff, that we can figure out some type of, zero-based truth or whatever, or some other type of concept or process that we can put in place to share across those security boundaries.
Good stuff. We've got a question from Jamie Nelson in the chat, and I guess I would probably direct this to Matt or anybody on the panel, really. And the question is, what will the challenges be for small, medium-sized businesses in terms of adoption of 5G? Really, what's the application for small business? I know we've talked a lot about large enterprises, but I don't know if you have any perspective from a Verizon perspective, Matt, or if anybody else in the panel would like to chime in.
I'm gonna let somebody else take it first, and then we can talk about it. Mostly what we look to do is serve all of our customers, and so really the speed and throughput will help these. So, you know, where there may have been limitations on what you could share or how you could connect to your customers or where you could connect to your customers, 5G will help eliminate that because of the ability to move data quicker and in a safer manner. But as far as the applications, I think probably Dustin and Alex are probably more, probably better to answer that question as to what it can happen. So
okay,
I'll turn.
I guess I'll look at it from the perspective of that a lot of our customers will say, not necessarily small commercial businesses, but small entities nonetheless. it's really an efficiency aspect. So a lot of what we do today, let's just take security for an example. Right now, a lot of, for example, if we subscribe to one of the security cloud services, all of those camera feeds go up to somebody's cloud to be rendered. The application gets processed there and then streamed back to us. That's a very expensive way to do things, right? So in actuality, that most of that never needs to leave your premises. It also is a privacy issue too. So I think the way I see it is 5G is a platform to build on to add efficiency. I think Jim, talked about industrial IoT, which is kind of a process automation. How do we make things cheaper? How do we create a factory where things are more efficiently built? From a kind of a retail facet, it can be sort of a point of sale efficiency. It can be, again, sort of security. It can be customer experience. All of these things that are built around service enablement. 5G is a service enablement platform. That's really what it does. And so I think if you put those together, you'll see as a small business, you can really take advantage of that. Now, I'm not going to tell you tomorrow I can go buy something and it's going to solve my problem. But in the coming years, I think, again, as this ecosystem evolves, there will be people following in to create that value. And I think that's where you're going to see small businesses really get their compelling story out of it.
Yeah, that was excellent, Dustin. I couldn't agree more. What I would simply add is for the organizations on this call, obviously we're in the tech sector here, we're learning, we're paying attention, but the vast majority are not. And I think that's where the strategic advantage will happen, Jeff, is that those that are early adopters, if you will, of 5G into their business, whether it's efficiency gains, customer, what have you, starting a strategic approach for how to leverage 5G capabilities is going to be a discriminator for people. And so are all these new use case opportunities that Dustin also dodged on. I will say this. What's interesting to me is I see a meshing, right? The whole notion of fourth industrial revolution, whether it's AI, IoT, commercial space microsatellites providing rapid data throughout the world, in outer space itself, connecting. You've got Bitcoin and everything that represents. All this data-driven action happening is leading to more meshing and overlap between some of those areas. And I think that's where exciting new use cases are going to pop up that none of us have envisioned. And from my perspective, when Lisa mentioned 6G, between now and 6G, there's about 22 million high wage jobs anticipated to happen as a result of 5G implementation. It's through course in the next decade. And so one question is, well, how can we position Arizona to capture more of that 22 million high paid jobs? How can we better tell our story in this sector as we have in other sectors, and then go tackle those problems, right? To make Arizona a hotbed for 5G and 6G. And by the way, just an aside, for the Freestar, we're positioning this as an enablement for our customers to get to 6G with a lower cost threshold, both an OpEx and a CapEx opportunity based on what we're bringing to the table as far as the capability of the Freestar. But back to the point is that if you haven't started looking at what you can or will be able to do in a 5G millimeter wave ubiquitous environment, now's the time to start. And you will get a leg up on your competitors in doing so.
So Alex, I'm going to ask this question that Michael Beach had put in the chat, and I'm addressing this as an old guy who watched 60 Minutes over the weekend, and they actually taught on this 2 weeks ago. His question is, do you anticipate that the global shortage of silicon chips and processors will impact the rollout of 5G technology?
Oh yeah, that's already happening, Michael. That was probably a leading question. And I think maybe Dustin, you can chime in too, and Raytheon can, but there is definitely a shortage, a global shortage. President Biden met with industry recently to try to figure out how to address this problem. The end of the day, it's logistics, it's a supply chain and a technology problem that's going to sort itself out eventually. but in the near term, there's definitely shortages. The good news about Arizona is we have a great semiconductor presence here. Obviously, with companies like Intel and now Taiwan Semiconductor and so many others. In short, Michael, that is an issue. We're gonna have to deal with it and punch right through it. The question in my mind is, as a nation state, how do we position ourselves so that we can, beat the other guys in terms of market share?
Okay.
I'll chime in if you don't mind, just follow up on that from Alex's conversation there. Alex is obviously knee deep in it as we are, and the global supply chain issue is very broad. The limitations in the silicon world are compounded beyond everything else. We've been notified by some of our vendors we're up to 52 weeks, right? I can't get a part for a year. I give them an order today, I got to wait till next year to get it. So a supply chain is only as strong as its weakest link. And I think we've found out that when we globalize the entire supply chain, there are liabilities, right? We do get necessarily, a cheaper supply chain logically as we, economies of scale naturally distribute that way. But there are liabilities. I think we're coming to rationalize that may not be strategically the way we want to look at things. And so I'm kind of looking at this from the standpoint of the CHIPS initiative and the legislation and pouring in a lot of assets into Arizona in particular, I think is well placed for us in the coming years, I think, to be able to mitigate some of those liabilities.
Okay, good stuff. We have a question from Gordon Barber, and his question is, can the panel talk to the impact of 5G in public safety? How does the latency and bandwidth, how will that change how public safety professionals, i.e. police and emergency responders, perform their job and the technical advances that will come with this? Please feel free to chime in if you want to.
I'll take one from a first responder type situation. So one of the things that we found to resonate certainly with many folks in the first responder environment, and also call that out to sort of Homeland Security and some of the others, is the ability to have infrastructure on the go. So they go into a situation where a fire, earthquake, you name it, has sort of knocked out what exists and how they can access it. Part of the enabling features of 5G is to be able to take a network with you on a backpack, take it in a vehicle, put it on an aerostat. We do things like UASs. We actually have drones that go up and we can fly 5G networks. All of that stuff really is a way for them to rapidly get in and manage the situation with infrastructure that comes with them versus waiting for like post-Katrina issues with, I got to wait for all the guys to show up and fix the towers before I can talk to anybody. Those are liabilities that are being remedied, I think, under the 5G portfolio.
Okay.
Yeah, what I would add there too is you can't get to that point unless you fix the infrastructure to get there in the first place, where you make 5G ubiquitous in the first instance. Right now, it's not. We all know it's not. Some of you may have bought a 5G enabled phone, but you can't really use it unless you're in certain spots in Tucson. Matt, can probably tell us where we need to be to have that level of connectivity in certain parts of the state and the nation. We need to tackle the broader problem where it's ubiquitous, right? And once it's ubiquitous, then you can help better connect emergency first responders, whether it's in urban situations or rural situations. Getting to a ubiquitous environment is what it's all about. And what I understand with the global rollout, the way it's going, is you really have to be able to tackle the cost factor, as well as integration issues, questions around the infrastructure itself, and everything associated with the life network. And we hope that we're bringing a product to the market that helps in that process because it's a lower cost, better solution. But that's a very good question. At the end of the day, 5G will save lives. As we look back from 6G to today, there's no question in my mind that 5G will be a lifesaver, from surgeries happening from across the country to all these things that happen with ambulances and having better data when they arrive at the hospital, seeing there's already the records, they already went through what exactly is going to have to happen on arriving at the hospital. So it's all predicated on faster data transmission at the end of the day. Good question.
Yeah.
Jim, I've got a
Jeff,
question. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, and some of the other things that, are things that we're seeing and planning for is that, so for example, the real world examples are, I walk into I'm with a host of fire people, and we're walking into a burning building. There's 6 of us, and the smoke is so thick I can't see my hand in front of my face, but 5G allows me to electronically see where the other 5 are, where the flames are coming from, what's behind this door, what's going on, where the hole in the floor is, and all this other stuff. So going back, that's a real world example of something that can be solved by 5G that will save lives, like Alex said. It's something that I know my brother-in-law is looking at is that, you have a surgery that's happening, and you have a specialist that's operating out of Italy, but the thing needs to take place in Tucson, Alabama. And so you have somebody that you can get on and can guide the surgeons that are in that room through what's going on with the specialist that's somewhere else. And so it's like, these are the kind of applications that we just can't do right now because the data speed is so slow and the latency is not where it needs to be to provide these real world opportunities. But these are the kind of things. So from a first responder, others is that the speed and the data and the removal of the disruptions in the network that happen now under the 4G and the LTE network, when they're gone, you can get real world real time applications. And that will, again, as Alex mentioned, save lives and prepare people better to handle situations and be able to communicate throughout every place where a stakeholder needs to be.
Good stuff. Quick question for Jim. Our country has a history of developing technologies for our military that are later used in civilian uses. And unfortunately, right now, we're dealing with a situation where China has technical superiority when it comes to 5G in many areas. How important is it to have technical superiority on the battlefield when you're dealing with a high-tech potential adversary, say China in the Pacific?
Yeah, it's going to be absolutely crucial. I mean, as you can imagine, and I can't talk to details, but a lot of the scenarios we sit in now are pretty focused right in that area. And it's going to be much different because we may not have the superiority like air power and type of things that we've always used to having, because we're going to be we're talking about capacities and volumes that are much bigger than us. So to have 5G and be able to move faster at what we call it in the Pentagon, the speed of relevancy, and relevancy because the adversary gets a vote, how fast he moves, how good his threats are, drives how good we need to be. But yeah, if we can outthink them, if we can get inside what we call the OODA loop, right? Observe, orient, decide, and act. If we can get inside because we can move quicker, we have data flowing faster inside what their next move is going to be, it's going to give us back an advantage to hopefully beat someone who may have a higher capacity of fielding units than we do.
And Jeff, let me add to that, to Jim's comments. There's no question that 5G and 6G will have profound national security implications, and how well we execute on the strategy of getting there faster before our adversaries. It's really what's going to be key. It's keeping that discriminator advantage that we enjoy today. One thing we have to do is spectrum dominance, right?
Yeah.
Is we have to be able to have better knowledge awareness of the battlefield. We recently had unclassified briefings at our shop from the U.S. Pacific Command, the warfighter in charge of the South Pacific, and they walked through a number of scenarios. They're all predicated on data and awareness, better battlefield awareness. And how you get there is the big question that I think DoD is grappling with, that organizations like Jim's are tackling head on. We feel that we can contribute to that fight, that cause, if you will, as well. But it will be a kind of like a speed to market effort on the commercial side. We're enabling a dual technology. The faster we go on the 5G on the commercial playing field, the faster we can employ some of these opportunities from a defense perspective. It's usually been the opposite, right, Jim? Where DARPA creates the internet, then comes commerce after that. DARPA creates a new system of technologies that later the commercial market has access to, and so forth. In this instance, I think because of the delta between us and China right now, U.S. government is wisely leveraging everything happening in the commercial sector for dual use.
Yeah, there's a little bit more push now on the whole dual use technologies than there ever was before, right? In my last 5 years in the government, sitting in the Pentagon, that was being pushed a lot more than it had been in previous years. And kind of the phrase we throw with what Alex has talked about decision superiority, it's the right data at the right place, the right time to the right person, right? And hopefully you're doing that simultaneously to all levels of the force so that everybody has that information real time at the same time. And then you can really make some decisions and have the same situational awareness no matter what level you are in the organization. And now you can really get synchronized and move much faster than you could before.
Good stuff. Well, listen, I'd just like to say thank you to everyone on our panel. And I'm going to go ahead and pass this back to Lisa Lavallo at Cox to go ahead and wrap up our webinar today.
Yep, same. I just wanted to say thank you to everybody and to the Tech Council for organizing this. And I think Carla has some closing comments.
Thank you all so much. Thank you so much to Cox Business and Lisa for their sponsorship for today's event. I'd also like to thank Jeff for moderating today's Tech Talk Series event. And absolutely thank you to all of our panelists for the spectacular content on a timely subject that we're all thinking about these days. I know that we've had a few questions that did not get answered. I'll be sure to share this with the panelists and get some answers for our attendees. And keep in mind that this event is being recorded, so anybody that registered for the event will get a copy of the recording, and I'll be sure to reach out and answer some of those questions that were not answered. I know we could have gone for another hour about this, but I know you all are busy, but I thank you so much for your time. For our guests, please be sure to visit our website at arizonatechcouncil.org for all future virtual events. And keep in mind that we are going to face-to-face events coming up short here in the fall. Look forward to seeing you all again soon. I'm sure the conversations will carry on into 5G and more 6G as well. Thank you all so much. Have a wonderful afternoon. Look forward to talking to you all again soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Great job.
Thank you, everybody.